All right, I'd like to call the IT committee to order. And first order of business is any motion to accept the minutes of September 20th, 2022. Motion by Jim Nolan, second by Matt Hicks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. County attorney, cybersecurity report. You all prepared to give them?
I am. So did everybody get the cybersecurity report? Very simply, we've had a number of advisories that we received. I believe as Roger said at the county meeting on Friday, there was an award for $50,000 of funding under the fiscal year 2020 cybersecurity cyber grant program. There's upcoming National Association of County Cyber Tech Simulations without security considerations. A number of inquiries and alerts discussed, and you see the statistics on there. So are there any questions?
What are the parameters as to how the 50,000 can be spent?
That point, I do not know. Jerry,
You know, Terry,
I didn't hear the question.
the cybersecurity money, $50,000.
Yep.
Any idea how that can be spent?
Yes, it's, she put in the grant for policies, so a policy updates, to improve the cybersecurity posture.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, next is Harry, you're up.
Want me to come up?
Sure, why not? Get you on the camera.
Well, maybe I'll stay there.
Well, technically, we're supposed to have you on the camera for speaking.
Gotcha,
No, you're way over there.
okay. I know. Very far back. So this month I just have the ticketing report as well as the project updates. So I guess I'll start with the ticketing report and see if anybody has any questions on that at all. I do have an update on this, actually. I'm still looking and verifying the numbers, but I believe I'm going to be able to give even better numbers than what I have currently right here. These are all tickets that were completed in the month of September, but the ticketing system has been going through some updates, and we now can get all of the actual entries made during a specific month. So I didn't present it this month because I'm still validating the numbers look better, but it would be a more accurate picture, I think, of the work done every month. So this may be changing slightly.
Just a couple of questions. I noticed we spent 65 hours in the sewer district.
Yep.
Is that built on?
So that's a good question. I don't believe so, yeah.
I guess the question is, should it be?
Well, so the time we spent with the sewer district has been working with them to quote out equipment for the project that they're doing. So we spent quite a bit of time over there going around to all they have water networks, so skated pumps, and help them build out quotes to buy equipment. So I don't know the answer to that. I think that would be a financial question, whether we build them back. We have the ability, and we do track it all.
Generating revenue to cover the sewer district, should we charge them for? Question, yeah.
We should be charging them back so that Hartford taxpayers don't pay for the sewer district. I don't want to flush my toilet in Hartford, not to pay for it. Goes in the whatever.
It doesn't have any impact.
One flush one.
They do pay for their own equipment. The sewer district does buy all their own equipment.
I currently build up 50,000 for my services. That's all we build up. We collect their sewer bills, they charge us 50,000.
We've never charged them for other departments, whether it's IT or any other department.
We have not.
They are on the county network, so just be aware of that. They have county email, county computers, and they're part of the county internet network. So
I would be interested
just like every other.
if we can take a look at what the costs are. Admitted day and a half is right.
I asked that question a million times. I'm always told, don't worry, it won't cost you.
I will say this is out of the ordinary, the amount of time that we spent there. Usually at most, it's in a couple hours a month, not much.
If what we're like, could that be a shared services type of item?
I don't know, I just noticed and thought it was particularly high, so I just asked the question when it came out. So I think it's a discussion we should have. I mean, if they're on our network servers and internet service and everything else, I mean, that should be apportioned somehow, whether it's shared service or what. But I think, Melissa, can we just sort of do a dive into that? And
Like, because they are.
Shared
us,
shared
so you
service, they're
share
us.
with yourself.
They're us, yeah, they're not sharing with another municipality.
They're not a
But
separate.
they're really not though, are they not? Because
Well-
they're ratepayers, not taxpayers.
True, but their entity of the school district is really under our umbrella.
But they're their own taxing jurisdiction.
Bang.
Brian,
Did I hear correctly? We get 50,000 in administration fees.
Yes,
for the treasurer services,
we used to charge them for the cost of one account clerk, and that's been moved up to 50,000 to accommodate some other.
So they're billing for them?
Yes.
They technically, yes,
Yeah.
they send us a spreadsheet that imports into my system, that creates the bills, we mail them out, we collect them,
We print them.
they print them. Her office is the one that does the import into my collection system.
so
It's supposed
I would like to, because it covers more than IT, I'd like to kick this up to government ops and ask Melissa and my next role at government ops chair, Melissa and Terry, just take a look at this and spread around, see what the costs are involved. I mean, if it's middling, that's fine, but if there are substantial costs, we should really consider whether we want to build back or not. Yes,
who pays the postage of the bills that we mail out.
Sewer district.
Hartford taxpayer.
So if the sewer district pays for that, why wouldn't the sewer district pay for the other things as well?
I think that's where we're going down the road.
And they would have to build it into their budget. So
Well, does Matt Jones do anything for the sewer district? Does Laura do anything for the sewer district? Does that just, so
there are several county
there are
offices.
several counties, so if you look at one, look at them all.
We do an indirect cost report every year that captures a lot of that.
I was gonna suggest that the indirect cost report probably captures a whole bunch of that.
It does.
But this, I mean, your second highest.
Just this month it was, because we had.
Is it going to remain that way for a couple of months, or are you done with that now?
No, so we're essentially done. We've got a little bit of the install left to do, but we had to help them spec out technology for their entire campus because they're doing a big.
Yeah, I understand what's happening. I just didn't know if it was done.
Yeah.
So
The
this,
quotes are done.
so this should probably drop down to what has been average for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
A couple hours of,
We have those measurements.
yeah, I mean, it's been one of the smaller ones overall. So it's, maybe they were just getting excited because we got a high one.
No, I think we should, I mean, if other departments do spend time, are we charging it back for indirect costs?
Well,
We should look at that.
no, maybe that's included in somebody else $50,000.
You know the answer to that, Al?
Well, it's more, the 50,000 I bumped up, it's more than what we used to charge. We used to charge for one account clerk in my office. The 50,000 is more than that number. So
Yes, I
I built
understand
in some
that.
additional,
Are you building that?
because we also do payroll for them. We also do,
Right.
capital project
Yeah,
account. for them.
I know it's been going up for.
You also include in that salary $50,000 of benefits, another 40%, 50%.
But they're funding a whole person, is my point. That's,
Right, how does the indirect costs recapture? I guess that's my question.
so their indirect cost is measurement, is a measurement tool that we need for both public health and social services. They capture real estate money through the indirect cost report, but that indirect cost report also includes the sewer district. Even though the report's done for those two departments, it includes all departments. So there is a measurement tool that can ascertain how much time was spent in the various departments.
So will that tell you if their total is over 50,000 or under 50,000 or not?
It will better measure the departments that are not. It'll measure things like Roger Wicks, IT, buildings and ground square footage. It won't measure any of the real property services.
And are there any things that the sewer district does for us that we don't pay for?
So
Yes, a lot for us,
for you,
yes. They use all their equipment for drains and everything. Every time we have a problem with anything backing up here, they're here. Working with us to make it right.
So we could,
I could
Go
guarantee
into
you that
that.
they probably are more hours in here than we are down there.
But it's our drains that go to the sewer.
Well, no, not all. Sometimes we might use them like, the Annex 1 foundation drains were plugged, you know, but they have the equipment that would work, so they were up here taking it all apart. Trying to get it draining again for us, and that took probably a week.
I would think that if you're gonna charge up that hill before the budget is final, would probably be a bit better time to do that, because they're gonna have to build it in. If you're gonna start billing them for something. then That's
But if
gonna
they're
happen.
doing more for us and we're doing for them, it might be the other way.
I'm just saying if that cost is not built into their budget, now would be the time.
But it should be true.
And it may be,
There should be a true up.
Good point. I think it's,
well, does that mean the towns are gonna give back more to the county because the county does more for the towns?
If there's a true up, then it comes out of the taxpayer of the county.
Right. No, when somebody goes,
budget office.
no, when it goes the other way though, are we gonna do that with the towns? When the county goes and helps you, are you gonna pay the county for coming to help because they do more?
We
than the
always
town?
offer our help to the county DPW.
Right, but you don't true it up. So what, yeah, what would really ruin your budget? I think that's why I'm worried about going up that hill.
Plus, it's not a lot of effort for probably not a whole heck of a lot of return.
Fact is, the
For a
sewer
negative
district,
return.
the sewer district is a taxing jurisdiction. That's what makes us unique.
So are the towns, so that's my point.
But I think if we're gonna charge for IT services and such, we want to get that built into the budget. We're in budget season now, so I would definitely encourage strongly to either do it now or you're gonna wait another cycle. It would be hard for them to build that cost in after the fact. They don't have a huge fund balance, so they would need to know now if that was gonna happen.
I think that people would really like to know where it stands. Am I misinterpreting?
I think you're gonna have to hire another person to do all the accounting and go through Laura and go through Matt and go through everybody to figure out that we come out. They're $27 a head. Because we had a discussion at the town level about what we do with the county, what we do with Parker, what we do with Hampton. And a couple of my board members wanted all that figured out so we see who's getting screwed, who's ahead. And my DPW guy said, we help each other out, we all move along, we're all part of the same organization, let's just not waste our time. So we don't.
What's flavor?
I agree with that. There's a good neighbor type thing that goes on here that you got to each other. Gary went through into the last 12 months of the sewer district. We'd probably find out that it's not as high as what it's being presented today.
That's
Because
just-
we're reacting to something.
This-
rather than
this-
being responsive.
This is just a one-time that popped out, but how much does internet cost? For
I
them and their
have to-
locations. I mean, that's substantial. That could be substantial numbers.
I just have one. I'd have to look and see from a cost perspective if they're paying any of that. I'd have to look at that.
Why don't you look at it and say,
Yeah.
Melissa?
I guess my question would be where we would draw the line, because the sewer district, their employees are county employees. They're not just sewer district employees. We treat them, they are Washington County employees. Their paycheck has Al's signature on them. They receive our benefits. So I guess
Our civil service.
their civil service, so any promotion tests they take, if they happen here. I just don't know if you went down that road where we would draw the line, where we would stop billing them.
They have our phones, they have our email, they have our computers.
Just don't know where we'd stop.
They have our internet or webpage?
Yeah, they're on the webpage.
Okay. Well, let me just take a cursory check and see.
And maybe one option would be that they should be billed for anything that's an additional cost. to the county. So Terry's
That's a good way
staff
to go.
time, she would be paying whether they work for sewer district or they work for buildings and grounds. An additional cost would be the cost of their trunk dial into our accounting system. So maybe we look at the things that are an additional cost to the county, not a cost that we would have with or without them. Maybe that's a way to kind of measure. So there's no additional burden on the taxpayer. Maybe that's one way to measure.
Okay.
Well, at the same time, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we were way low in those costs to the people in the sewer district. And they're rapidly gonna go the other way to where they're way high.
Yeah,
And the sewer district has to work for that region, not that I want to pay part of the sewer district. But we have to be cognizant that they're all county taxpayers. And even though it's a fee and not a tax, the way they're doing things, it's getting tremendously high. And I saw it 5 years ago, I mentioned it here many a times, they're rapidly increasing. And I think you all remember the meeting where they said, well, we'll raise it 20%, 30%, 40%, whatever it takes. keeps playing in my head every time they show up.
So you're saying we shouldn't figure out that if they're paying $100,000, that shouldn't, that then we have a decision make whether we want the taxpayers who are not sewer district
No. I'm
users
not
to carry
saying
that
I'm
cost?
saying
That's
you
exactly
gotta-
what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that you gotta remember that they do things for us too. You have to look at that.
Understood, but I think the statement was, let's look at the hard costs. For example, what is the net cost, what the trunk costs are, what are we paying
I
out,
agree with that.
not just swapping services.
But if we're gonna true up everything, and we should do it across the board and true up with all the towns too. If that's the way we're gonna go, because you're gonna spend all this money on extra people to true everything up. To find out that all you did was cost everybody more money.
But if we know the hard costs, or what it costs to deliver internet to them, and that's the only cost we're looking at, where's the additional burden?
I think it would be easy to measure what costs you wouldn't have if you didn't have them. I think that would be an easy measure.
I think so too.
That's just my 2 cents.
So you're gonna stop asking them to help then, or that Matt brought up?
No, that's not what we're asking. We're asking, we're paying out hard costs for internet that's over and above what we would normally pay for county services.
I get that. You gotta, what they, services they provide, you gotta come up with a.
But then we have services that are, they're not, like someone said, we have the people, we're still spending the people. We're not getting down to charging what we're doing for swapping services. We're gonna do it with the hard cost of taxpayers. Hard cost is internet, the trunk, telephone services, email services, web services.
It's a hard cost if Matt has to call a private company to come in and do what the sewer district's doing now.
Tim, I didn't think that's what we said. I think we said those services that we're swapping back and forth like that, which aren't fixed costs of the county, that was something we'd already pay, such as human resources, personnel, then we wouldn't worry about those services. We were only looking at the hard cost.
Can we put it politely, what he just said, I'll try to be politely, it's not gonna be all that polite. What he's saying is, if you're gonna do that to me and I'm the sewer district, I'm not coming, you call me, you can call someone else and pay the bill. That's where I'm worried this is going.
And after you're one that has concerns,
I think if it's like a mutual aid type of thing, you kind of would let it be a wash, but as Al says, if you have hard costs that you can determine, that's okay. But I'm a little bit concerned about the trend you're going with, Brian. You're saying that the rate at the sewer district will soon become so unaffordable that the only way that the ratepayers can afford it is if Hartford payers now become part of
No,
ratepayers.
that wasn't what I was saying. I was saying I was ringing the alarm years ago that you gotta remember, we approve everything they do and everybody just rubber stamps it because they say, oh, that's a sewer district, they're paying for it. But we're not helping the sewer district customers by just rubber stamping it. We should be looking at it a little more detail and say, no, you cannot keep raising that because you find out that their fees have doubled and soon they're quadrupled, and that is a huge cost, and those people pay taxes too, and if you're charging them fees like that, how do they pay their taxes in their fees?
Doesn't the sewer district have a board of commissioners? I don't think are you on the board of commissioners?
No, but I have talked to commissioners at some time, but I think they've all left.
So these can leapfrog over the board of commissioners for how they're gonna address.
Then why does it come to us?
Well,
It comes to us, we either say yes or no.
so we're gonna stop this for a second.
All right, Debbie just clarified that the sewer district does pay their telephone costs, their internet costs. I know they pay their own electric.
The phones are just off our phone system, so they're no different than phones that are in here or any others.
So we got the clarification.
The internet's done, that would be the biggest cost. They buy their own equipment.
So,
Yes, sir.
did we ever get into the original question? Was about the cost sharing agreement? I think that was the original question it started, so I don't think we had an answer to that.
Well, there really be no cost sharing because it's, what they're saying is it's a county entity.
Okay. Just double check, and I said,
Okay.
I'll make sure I wasn't missing something.
So it came around to find out they're already paying the cost we're concerned about was the internet, electricity, everything. Okay, thank you. Okay, next, anything else?
Anything else?
Any other questions? All right, motion to adjourn. Motion by Jim, second by Sue. All in favor? Yeah, thank you.
No one's hurt, well, I started with this one. I handed out the report. but I didn't-
We have visitors here today.
Apparently you guys are ready to find out.
That's fine.
Any questions on the project status updates? Anything to say?
Nothing in particular.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything that you're waiting on parts for the room upgrade?
Yeah, we're waiting on that, and then the cameras right now have been a big focus for us, but trying to beat the weather. We just got the outside ones mounted. I think we're done with that, more than 75% done for the whole project, which I think is really impressive. There's 90 some odd cameras, so.
Okay.
That's good.
We're adjourned.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you. Go to the,
He said flush it. I have another.
Exactly. It's a MAGA joke, right?
I'm with you.
all right, let's call it coming out to committee to order.
Come on. What are you using? Are you the government operations chair? Because the crowd.
Look
Look at that big crowd.
Okay, I am going to change the order. We have some visitors here, so Matt.
Actually, if you know,
Nope, I'm gonna start with Matt.
how long you got?
Stephens is here.
She's
Okay.
Well, we just have a presentation, so.
That's okay, mine may be moving.
All right. Why don't we go over the presentation first?
Okay.
So we've been working on the Mill Falls DPW feasibility study down there. The first progress report is, I think we're almost ready to close on the property. It went through the planning board, meeting's been good. I would say within the next couple of weeks, the maps are filed to add on that extra 6/10 of an acre, so. Other than that, it's been stale until this is completed now, kind of all the blocks are falling together, so I'm gonna let them present it. It's incorporated the 6/10. And what I'd like to get out of the presentation when we're all done is maybe a resolution to move forward, to go out to bid for the engineering of the actual building. So we'll start up now, and this is Beth Bilger. She's from
Morning,
ME.
Beth Bilger from ME Engineering. Matt said we've been working the last few months on a study to look at the existing Middle Falls DPW site for the county, assess the existing building, and then we had some proposed plans to move forward with the replacement building. The rest of our team is Kevin Kelly from Weston and Sampson, who's looking at the civil part of the project, and John Sharkey from Rhinebeck Architecture, who did a layout for the proposed building. So what we'd like to do is not necessarily go through the entire report word for word, but give you guys the kind of summary highlights, go through the floor plans so you can see the layout. We'll briefly talk about some of the MEP systems in the building, and then take a look at the site plan and layout and the circulation around the building, and then field any questions that you folks have. If you wouldn't mind going to the first appendix, which you'll see the floor plans come up.
if everybody's got a hard copy, I think there's some around, I can give up mine, I know it's just like my heart. So if anybody wants hard copy to look at, the first page.
You'll see the 11 by 17. Report of the.
It's about page 12, I believe.
Just
Not
hold on.
really numbered.
You're not used to people shooting like that. I have personal space.
Yeah. So, so it works.
Who over there knows what this kind
Yeah, that's good. I can see him.
of- this kind of-
Morning. Luckily, I brought my glasses so I can actually see what the inside the page. If you could scroll down a little bit to the floor plan first. So basically, what we did, we met several meetings to talk about what the county's really looking for. And we have a 4-bay bus garage, double bay, so you can pull in trucks from either end. We made them a little bit wider than your typical bays, a little longer, so you get trucks in there with plow. So there's some issues at some other facilities. I think we were in Kingsbury where they were, things were kind of tight, so we made this building a little bit deeper. I think we're about 94, 96 feet deep. And that gives you a lot of flexibility on the site. As Matt mentioned, you got the extra property, which worked in real well, so that circulation in and out of the building would be beneficial. And then in trying to keep it as efficient as possible, we basically took a 4th bay, which would be the administration areas. You come in the front area. I don't know if it's possible to scroll down a little bit more. It's going to jump to the next slider. Or minimize. Yeah, there you go. So you come in the front area, corridor, shared bathrooms there in the back to back. Best layout for economy. A break room in the back. Then we have a storage area, and then above that we have a mechanical area. And again, this is very schematic, so as we get into it, some of those spaces get a little smaller and get some more storage space in there. There's also, if you look at the plan, a mezzanine option, if you did need that for parts and storage. So the ground floor right now is 10,340 square feet, and then the mezzanine would be about 1,900 square feet for a total of 12,312 square feet. We're anticipating slab on grade. Beth will talk a little bit about the grading heating option, where it'd be a prefab metal building, metal siding, metal roof. We have overhead doors on either end of each bay. We're looking for bigger doors so we can get larger trucks in there. So we're showing 14-foot high doors with glazing in them for lighting, and then pretty simple overhang at the front entry as you come in, protection from the elements. And that's pretty much it. So we try to get a plan that's as efficient and give you as much room as you would need. Obviously, we haven't gotten into storage and work tables and things like that. We have the mezzanine area would be here. So you go up the stairs to the mezzanine, and then this entire wall here below could be for work table storage. We also have columns in the middle to be able to drop air, gas, whatever you need down there, and then more storage area along the side. So there's plenty of room in there to do what you need to do. As you get farther into the design, that could be optimized and see what else you need. On the elevation, if you want to scroll back up a little bit. Next page, yep. So pretty straightforward. We like to do concrete knee walls because a lot of the metal buildings you see, some places they go to the ground, they get damaged. You plow against them, you get salt and everything against them, and it wears it out. So we show usually a 40-inch high knee wall around the entire building, bollards around the doors, protect the doors, and then pretty simple, straightforward main entry, some columns, overhang there into the main office area. And pretty much as efficient as you can get. The entire building would be a manufactured metal building, low maintenance and efficient.
What about fire protection?
Fire protection, we would have to, we'll talk about that, but it would have to be sprinklered. The option, you could go non-sprinklered, but anything over 5,000 square feet, you have to put a firewall in. Yeah, and it gets into a double wall and door, in between. So we would want to have fire protection sprinklers, and that way you can build pretty much as big as you want to make it. Or if you want to add onto it later.
It's a little tough on a well.
Yeah, well, we have budget numbers in there for a combination water tank and a fire suppression tank. Yeah.
I'm ahead of myself.
Oh, yeah, no. Question.
Yes, you mentioned in-floor heating.
Yes,
Is that in the occupied area or the truck base?
Just to the truck base.
Yeah, just in the truck base. Yeah.
Who was it that told me? Maybe somebody here that you have in-floor heating like that in the wintertime, when you open the doors and the heat all goes out, it takes forever to warm the space back
We'll
up.
also have supplemental heating as well as the radiant and slab. We're gonna have UV heaters in there as well. That'll be propane fired that deal with the overhead doors. We account for that. So when the overhead doors lift, that there will be a system that basically tries to counterbalance that. So that, to your point, you're not just constantly having to reheat the entire.
And I have a
building.
second question, Dave. Is there a concern because this is gonna be fairly new concrete? Salt kills new concrete. You're gonna have trucks in there with the overloaded trucks, because they're all overloaded with salt when they come in. But you're gonna have overloaded trucks with chains on and fresh concrete, but that's your source of your main heat is underneath that concrete. Is that gonna give us a repair problem in the future because you've got to bust out the floors? And now your heat is in the floors?
Well, the radiant heating is down pretty far from the surface, so if you had to go in at some point and scarify the top to repair it, it wouldn't affect the radiant heating. But we would anticipate putting a sealer on the floor to protect, keep
How
the floor
deep is the
protected.
heat?
The heating usually about 5 to 6 inches down into the slab.
That
Yeah,
takes
it's not right
forever
at the
to
top.
heat,
It's
to
down
initially heat
No,
up,
It
right?
becomes like a big brick. Once it gets heated,
Oh, yeah.
it just stays like a warm
Just
brick
stays
for the
warm.
whole season.
Yeah, the floor
It
down.
never really,
The floor
never really
never
cools.
Right.
Yeah, even if the door opens, the floor stays.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the plan or elevations?
We'll just go back to the floor plan, just down below it. Just talking briefly about some of the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, fire protection systems in the building. You mentioned fire protection. We do have to sprinkle it, as John mentioned. And being that it's not a well, we would have a tank for the fire water, potentially a combined tank for the fire water and the domestic, because we obviously will also have to have domestic water stored for use. So there will be a storage tank as well as a fire pump. We anticipate that probably being a diesel fire pump to serve the building. Obviously, that'll all be sized once we confirm the size of the building and the volume that we have. Plumbing wise, obviously in the central core, we've got the all the plumbing fixtures. We'll have a little break room with a sink. We'll have compressed air out in the work bays. Obviously, we'll have all the utilities to the building. Kevin will talk a little bit more about, how some of the utilities are coming into the site, but obviously sanitary, storm, the domestic water coming from the well, sanitary. And then electrically, fairly straightforward. Obviously, new electric service coming in. We will have all LED lighting in all of the spaces. We are going to provide you folks with a hookup for a roll-up generator so that you have that capability if needed down the road. Everything will be there. You'll just be able to bring a portable generator up and connect it. You'll obviously have receptacles and so forth scattered throughout the work bays for convenient means for the folks working out in the bays, obviously, as well as any needed power over in the common spaces. From an HVAC standpoint, we intend on trying to put an air handling unit over the common spaces. That'll give you heating and cooling. And then we'll also have some energy recovery that's required by code. And then out in the bays, as we talked about, we'll be doing some in-slab radiant heating. And then we'll also have propane fired unit heaters to help with any of cold air as you have any of the operable doors that open up to combat that. We'll have vehicle exhaust systems, obviously, as you bring vehicles in. We will also make sure that anything that we put in the bays, particularly with the lighting, we've been doing this with a lot of the other locations, is we obviously are counting for the height of the vehicles. So a lot of the placement of fixtures will be alongside the bays, not right over the top, as you can have, so you have enough vertical height for the vehicles to enter. I think those are most of the big systems. It's fairly straightforward. Anybody have any questions or?
Where's the water tank located in?
We haven't.
How big is it?
We haven't picked a size. I think it's at least a 20,000 gallon tank for fire protection. I think the domestic is probably a few hundred, but we may just combine those and have one. They can be separate. We would put it outside. I don't know that we nailed that location or you have it on the site plan. So when we get to the site plan, we can show you where we're proposing it. And
In
obviously
ground?
can remove it. it's not an exact location. We're probably trying to keep it fairly close to where the well point comes in. And just give us good access to the building so we can get in with both water services and then have like a water service room with backflow preventers and so forth.
Man, if we had a bad storm, right, and power goes out, you're gonna have to bring a generator down there, or you have a permanent fixture generator there, or you have one of the wheel ones in stock.
We use, we do the tow behind. Usually we have 2 tow behinds and that's how it's always operated.
You have to get up there then. if the
Yeah,
power's
we
out.
go there and it's boom, I start it up, plug it in and you're up and running. That's the current operation. It's using resources that we already have instead of investing. I think it's always worked good. I mean, everything I've talked to, you know, the DPW manager and Deb and that's worked fine for them. There's never been a situation where, you know, they needed something immediately because they're not there anyways. So.
If the power is out and there's a fire, the automation to start the diesel generator, does it require electricity, or do you have a charged compressed air that starts it? There's got to be communication electrically, right?
Yes, there's usually battery for anything that you need. That's why we go with the diesel. If we decided to go with an electric fire pump for some reason, then we would have obviously a generator. But our thought process being, let's just put it.
What's the
Your sprinkler system is
economics
off.
of a generator with electrical fire pump versus a diesel fire pump?
It's usually a few $100,000 more as a general rule. That's why we typically go with diesel if we can. Unless you have the maintenance of a generator, if you're not utilizing it a lot, then you have to exercise it and test it. So typically we'll go with the diesel. The diesel engines
Well, you
just
do
tend to
too
be
with
better
the
firing
diesel,
off.
otherwise it won't start. Okay.
My question goes back to the initial thing as we kind of built onto it. We talked about the fact we're going to make it a little bit wider inside for the wider trucks to get in. Then we talked about storage being able to go in those areas along there. And now we're talking about putting lighting in there as well. Isn't that kind of condensing it down and taking away the theory that we needed the lightnings for the trucks to?
Well, like the lighting will be up high. You're thinking though, if you've got storage along the sides of the bay. I mean, the width of the bays, I think account for having some portable. Right, they've got any things on wheels for their tool parts and things like that.
Yeah, you'd be able to easily get between each bay, you know, a 2 or 3 foot deep work area.
Okay.
And then along the sides, and then there's plenty of room where the stairs is to get it, you know, as deep as you need.
You know, how do you need the height to get the bucket or the dump out?
I don't know, but I know the Hartford barn, we can fully raise the
Yeah, the
tandem axle.
So I'm sure it's built for that. So you can.
Right, and that's sort of our intent is to leave this center portion so that anything you have with a sort of height to it will have an interference with, you know, a lot of times folks, we used to use in the past, a lot of the infrared heaters. And that was always an issue with the infrared heaters. You got them up there, it's hard to position them to get enough heat, and then they're causing an interference with the vehicle. That's why we like the radiant floor with the UV heaters, and then the lighting. We've had pretty good luck positioning it along the sides. You're getting enough light level, but leaving that space clear. So you're not interfering with the vehicles, because I know vehicles change. New vehicles are a little bit taller, right? You don't want to have an interference there. So
Can the dump body be fully raised inside the building?
which a dump.
The dump body can it be fully
What's
raised?
the height?
It should be, we'll take a look at that a little bit more. Typically, what we try to do is the overhead doors, some garage make a mistake of the overhead door goes up straight in. We follow the regular roof, so it follows the roof, so you got a lot more space in there, but.
Or if you have to, you bring the truck into the center of the building where your peak is.
Yeah, there's definitely enough room in the center to raise that body and probably in the base if you back in for sure.
Other questions?
Any other questions? If not, I would have Kevin walk through the site civil plans, give you guys a sense of how the site lays out, and go around the building.
If you could go down a few more pages. So this is the existing site that you just stopped there for a second. The kind of the red outline is the property line. And the property line used to be here and here. This is the 0.6 acres that is going to be added. And it makes a world of difference on usability of the site. So it's a really, really good thing. The existing building is in this location, and you can see how close it is to the property line. So by adding that 0.6 acres, you've really opened up the possibility of use on the site. It really makes it a usable site. So the site itself is on the east side of Route 40. To the north is the Elks Lodge, to the south, Polywog Gardens, to kind of give you an idea where it is. The site is very flat, and it rolls to the north and south. It kind of rolls down a little bit. It's a little bit high, but from Route 40, it's pretty flat extending in. So it's a good site with good site distance up and down Route 40 for safety. So all positive things about the site. The soils of the site are Oakville loamy sands, which is good, again, for infiltration. It's very sandy, so that will help you with stormwater management on the site. It'll also help with septic treatment on the site. The other thing is having sandy soils also will keep expansion of the soils minimized because the water drains out of it. So you don't have to worry so much about expansion of soils and freeze thaw. So got a lot of good things going on. Yes.
Can I ask the question, talking about soils, back to, and Matt, you could probably answer this, maybe it's just geographic terminology, if you're not from around here. Talking about the site has 2 1,000-gallon seepage pits. Is that another word for a leach field? We have septic tanks and leach fields, or do we have?
So if you could scroll down farther, we'll go to the next plane is a little bit larger.
Page 4, utilities.
Good, great. Okay, so here's the existing building. Over in this area, these two right here are structures in the ground, much like a dry well. Those are the seepage pits. So, so your effluent from the building goes to a septic tank, right? The solids come out, you take the fluid, and the fluid goes on to the system, much like you would go to a septic field. Except in this case, it's much like a dry well, and it's surrounded by gravel.
Is that even legal?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's, yeah.
Well, not if you have to repair one, then Washington County Code Enforcement won't allow you to continue with the, it's called beehive systems.
Mhm.
You have to come up with modern, but what is the future of our seepage pits? Is it going to remain pits?
Yes, so currently what we're proposing is that we put new lines out to it, new septic tank, new oil water separator at the building. And we use that because currently there's been no reports of any problems with it, and that it's meeting the need. Now, when we go into final design, we will take a look at all the loads going through it and make sure that the quantity that is available is appropriate. If it's not, you might have to add another pit. The plus about the seepage pits is that they take up a smaller footprint. And you typically don't use them on clay soils or heavier soils because your contact area is very small.
Plus, I think we are exempt from Washington County Code, aren't we? We're a municipality.
You're right, I believe.
We identify as on.
You're on the chart.
It's not helpful. Thank you.
Okay. If you could scroll down just a little bit more. That's actually, sorry. Great. Okay, so other things on the site to orient you. Over here, you have a salt storage shed, right? And this structure here is a screen with a ramp so that you can load the trucks, and the screen takes out the debris and the extra stuff. And then out front here, you have 2 above grade tanks, 3,000-gallon diesel, 2,000-gallon unleaded. So going back in the proposed condition, we're talking about enlarging the salt shed a little bit for more capacity. keeping the ramp and the screen because it's working, I change it. And then keeping the fueling in pretty much the same area. And according to reports, the quantity of fuel is fine. But what we're going to propose is updating the system. Because the tanks have been there a while, they're above ground. So we're basically putting new tanks, new dispensers. So that'll give you a long service life going forward.
Are we getting rid of the gasoline? Brian, are we getting rid of the gasoline? Why not? Why do we need gasoline?
What gets fueled there with unleaded?
Lawnmowers and Stewart's is just down the road. or
From
something.
deputies,
What's that?
the deputies spoke in there, public health.
But they have a Wex card.
Well, no, I'm just saying that you wanted to know what got fueled there.
The cost of the system is.
The foreman always filling the tank, hauling out to the job sites.
Unleaded?
In any town that has a program through the county, like our town does their lawnmowers there, and they do the town's pickup truck.
Right, but if we're gonna build this new, going back to Brian's idea many, many years ago, if you're gonna rebuild any of these, you don't put any money into the gasoline system. Take it out. You don't need gasoline at 3 o'clock in the morning when maybe one of the nearby Stewart's or whatever, Cumbies is closed during the business hours. You can use the county Wex card, fleet card, and go to gasoline pump as compared to the cost of new gasoline tank going underground or whatever. Does this consider removing gasoline? Has anybody mentioned that to you?
We're replacing in kind, same. So we're replacing or proposing unleaded gas and diesel, above ground tanks, much like it is, but updated with dispensers and a tracking system and probably fobs and stuff.
If we were gonna get rid of the gasoline, is now the time to do it, or when?
Before the final
See the
design.
engineering study?
Before the final design, we would make an amendment, and when we put this out to bid, it would go in as an amendment. That, hey, we're not gonna do this, but you guys would have to be the ones to make the decision. Right now, we can just do it current. You guys make the decision if you want gas or not there. And I'll make sure when I put it out to bid, it's reflective of that.
Were we, Debbie say about, Donnie can say about doing analysis, what it would cost for the system versus use the Wex card, because the Wex card isn't state contract price.
The last I talked to her, and this is, I'm just speaking for her, she's not here today. Last I talked to her, she was okay with getting rid of gas. If that was your wish, she wasn't gonna fight it. She was just gonna make it work. So it's up to you guys. I think she's okay with whatever way. And then we can do that before we go up for the final. They just have to have that direction. That's all.
Yeah, again, this is schematic design, once you get to the, trying to put everything in there, once you get to the next phase, there'll be 100 questions. What's the operation, who's gonna use it, that kind of thing, so. Just forward.
Dave?
Harold?
Yeah, the question I have is there at any time did we have prolonged power outages that might impact, local vendors of gasoline to where the county's pumps, if they were powered by the backup generator, would that be, a contingency that we'd want to look at?
That's a good point.
Why?
I said there's no power.
Yeah, they're going to get gas at Stewart's now. Stewart's got generators, their power's up, they're up and running.
I'm not sure.
No, we can't accept payment, sales tax, and all that stuff.
Sam?
But I think Daryl just hit on what I was going to ask. I mean, emergency situations, the rescue squads, the fire equipment, those types of things out 24/7, as well as our deputies. So if some of these places do go down, I know there are places, some stores operate that way, others close when the power goes out. They'll run their cash reserves again, but they lose their petroleum.
I know fire companies, their vehicles are always full. Always filled.
But if it's out for 4 or 5 days,
and there's no place to get it. That's where the issue comes in. I think I'd want to run that by, or see us run that by our emergency safety personnel to see.
I don't think the quantity of the tank is large enough to do that, because
Are most of them diesel?
Don't know if we can answer that question on doing a survey.
No, I think most of them are.
And if they are, Brian, you know, you can't, if the power's out, you can't pump diesel either. Pump.
Right, but we're gonna have diesel there, so that makes it not an issue. That's my question there. And I know we had a discussion with your people in Fort Anne's, that's the other building, and they're willing to go 24 hours for us if we want. They will open for us and be 24 hours in those situations.
So providing you have electricity to do it.
They would allow us to hook the generator and open it, but we had the discussion back down.
I just think we ought to talk to our public safety people about it because they
Yeah.
coordinate those kind of
No, we
efforts.
should.
We don't have expertise in this.
How much demand there is between whenever it closed the next morning for sheriffs and everything.
In Allen, I learned something the other day. On the price of your fuel when it goes to the outside entities. They pay, was it 12 cents a gallon?
Surcharge.
It's surcharge. They don't pay our rate, they pay more extra. So the white card would actually be cheaper.
I think. I remember when I was being charged wet gas, I think there was a delta more than that 12 cents.
As the gentleman said, this doesn't have to be decided today, and I think what we're discussing is a way bigger picture that needs to bring in public safety, the DPW and all that, and it's gonna be hours of debate that I don't think we need to.
We don't need to do it today anyway.
Right, that's what I'm saying, since,
This is just showing where to be.
but I think we need to talk about that. I think there's been a lot of points that we need to get working on that before we go too far into it to make a decision.
We brought it up a lot of times.
Do you go on down to another plan? And one more. One more down. Great, great. Go up a little bit, see the plan. So this is the proposed condition. Good. Okay, so Route 40 is out front there. The fueling area, much in place where it's shown or where it is today. The new building, 4 bays instead of 3, and administrative space. On the side of the building over there, like I said, a new septic tank and a new oil water separator from the trench drains in the bays. They would combine and go out to the pits. So you'd have maintenance on these 2 things, right? So we have access easily around it. As far as access around the building, if possible, we always want to go in a counterclockwise direction. That way the driver has the best view of his turning movement and any obstructions in the way. So we're proposing that the trucks come in and come to the back of the site and then continue out that way or up to the staging or the material laydown area to pick up product or whatever. And here is the screen for the salt and the salt shed, that area. This baby blue lines here is a stormwater management basin. And the idea being that it's the cheapest way to go about meeting the requirements of DEC. You have to do 2 things. One is quality, one is quantity. So the volume of the basin helps with the quantity piece, and the quality is infiltration into the ground and removal of grits. So this does a very nice job, and it as long as you have room on the site. So we're locating a spot here. We're adding altogether about 15 parking spaces, 12 in the back, and I think 3 up front. For 3 for visitors or whoever up front to use the front door, and then most everyone who works here parking up back. This blue hatched area out front is shown as stormwater management that's under the pavement, a gallery system. And basically, because the site is flat, we're looking at treatment happening with the building kind of being the high point. So we're able to treat the back area pavements with the basin. In the front, we need to collect it and treat it out front. So using an underground gallery system to allow infiltration, allows you movement over top of all the trucks. So it doesn't inhibit any movement, access to the building, et cetera. And then usually before it goes into that, you just have an inlet that's a hydrodynamic separator, which takes out the grid. Has to be backed out once in a while.
In the parking areas, we discussed any charging stations?
So in the report, we think that's something that's very smart to do in the next stage of design, is take a look at your fleet down the road and see if it's time that you could put some of the infrastructure in now in this capital project, or is it better to wait and see what technologies come down when you're expecting your fleet to transition in 12 years or something, or part of it? You know, do you make the investment now, or do you wait and make the investment later?
I was speaking specifically to like the employee parking spaces.
Yeah, that's.
The new fueling area, if your vehicles are going counterclockwise, and I see you have a tree at the bottom, is there enough room for the vehicle to fuel and then turn out, or does he have to go in reverse?
Yeah, the one thing with the fueling area is depending upon the operations, and this is another thing that we go through in final design, is how you want to use the space. So some people or some towns would like to fuel up and then park for the night. Others will park and then they'll fuel before they take off. So, or if you're out at a site and you need to come back and fuel, you don't, you just access the fuel and then return back on the main road. So there are some options. We can flip it to the other side where we have visitor parking and then put visitor parking there. If you want to fuel as you enter the site and then park, or it can be this way.
Well, in the wintertime, when they're plowing, the vehicle doesn't return to the truck bay. It comes in, loads up. The way this is, the map is, I think they would probably load the salt first, because that's the way the traffic flow goes,
Right.
and then you're gonna go to the fueling area.
Right.
But how does he get out of the fueling area?
So what I just know the history of this. A couple of the reasons we still have the fueling area there, Dana, is because the landowner adjacent to us, for one, had asked that when we sell your property, it was one of the things we discussed. She didn't want the salt or the fuel on that property line on the south side, which she just asked. I mean, it's not inviting yet, but that was one of the asks that she did ask us, was the salt down there. And then we weren't planning on moving the salt screen or the salt storage yet, so that kind of keeps that flow going. Where that tree is in the middle, it doesn't have to be there. Like I said, you can just do a U-turn and go back and park if you're fueling at the end of the day. But the reason why that was left like that was to try to minimize the impact of changing everything around the salt, the fuel. But we're willing to.
And you can drive over that chamber thing with a fully laden truck.
And how large is the existing shelf storage shed?
I think it's the shed itself is probably, I don't know, probably 30 by 15 maybe.
So why would we tear it down and put it in the 30 by 60?
So this was a DPW request that one they wanted, actually they want two, was the last I heard, but I think one would work was what Deb said. It's just a bigger salt storage for that area. Maybe that one, more capacity. That's what they were talking, that's what they asked for, more capacity.
Make it longer.
That's what I'm wondering. You couldn't adapt the existing one instead of tearing it down and starting all over?
There's room on the site if you were gonna basically double up, add one over next to it. There's
There
room on the
was
site to.
something to do with the treated versus untreated too, or a bigger one. I think they were talking about adapting it, and the way I talked was they wanted to do a little more research on how to use it, whether it goes longer, but they have 2 bays going into the side, you know, they're gonna change it, make 2 bays out of the full one. So we just left it as one bigger building right now. But the idea, I believe, was the difference between treated and untreated salt of some sort.
Had nothing to do with town salt, county salt.
It didn't have anything to do with town.
Or capacity. The existing one has enough capacity as it is.
As it is for
right
the
now,
regular cell,
For the regular cell.
yes.
But they're not.
The request was, so I think for right now, we took a placeholder and asked for a bigger. It may not be what you're picturing, it's just one straight salt storage, it might be two going in each side, one part of it being treated, one part of it being regular salt. Now, there's other reasons, and we can bring that up, I know, Jimmy can answer those questions, why you have treated down there. I think there's a few things going on because of the location and the roads they do down there.
It works in colder out the treating.
Yeah. Whether, I shouldn't speak,
Do we have treated and untreated in all our other locations?
no.
Well, if you see some of the salt, it's not different color. It's all like green and.
Do we buy
That's all
treated right now?
I can't answer that question.
We're not buying treated, why are we putting it in a bay for treatment?
I can't answer, they may be getting it somewhere, I don't know that, we can bring that up at Public Works.
About that question, the one unknown is that they do maintain quite a few state roads down there, and
I
maybe
think
state
that's
is
what-
coming down the road where they need.
So all our farms maintain state roads.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know, are they coming down the road as far as the state requiring treated? And some of their planning ahead, and if we're planning ahead, I don't know, but I think. it's
Your
all-
speculation, I know that's the right, you're on the right path, it's something to do with the roads that we're treating down there in that area that they have something different. I don't know the specifics, but you're on the right path, man. That was what I understood in our conversations. So we just put a
Special bill calls for writing these notes down so we can ask them the engineering phase. required.
We started to go into, and then cut you off about parking lots. Okay, so with that, fossil fuels, and you said that, it could be 12 years away, construction of the building could take 3 years, so 9 to 9 years of possible change that could happen with fossil fuels. And that piece there, square footage of the building would accommodate change. We don't have to renew all the carbon infrastructure to implement the possible change if that comes 9 years down the road.
Yeah,
5
the,
years down the road.
yeah, I think that's something that we would need some direction as we go into final design. You know, do you foresee that need and a timeline so that we can help you make a decision whether you make that investment now or later? I kind of grabbed 12 years out of the air as far as, you know, it's kind of a mid distance away, you know?
9 years goes by fast. That was going very fast.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the time, we can always get an excavator and dig up the parking lot, bury the wires and.
Wouldn't we start with probably having electric foreman trucks first? I mean, Jim was talking about for the employees, for non-operations. Wouldn't we just put a 240 service inside, because you're gonna park the foreman trucks inside and plug them inside anyway, right?
We don't pay for fuel of employees now.
And I guess the bigger question, I think the bigger question to me would be, if we're talking about the bigger trucks and the bigger building, I don't even know, I've never seen where you can charge DC fast charging even indoors. So I think that part will probably end up being out, I don't know. Like he said, it's from where the technology goes. I've never seen a DC fast charging station inside.
What about a level 2 charger?
Those happen all the time.
Then you're all set with your performance trucks.
It could be, yes.
You're not gonna want to.
But I would say, I don't think they're gonna be diesel for 10 years anyway.
There's no room for foreman trucks.
Yeah.
These are all,
Well, how many big trucks are in this garage?
all of them.
Has every bay taken a big truck? Do we have 8 big trucks in the garage?
We do not.
I think the foreman trucks.
We definitely do not. The foreman trucks, I think, and also one bay of this building has been flagged for storage of the paver all winter, so it's not outside. So there's storage of equipment that they're lacking, that Middle Falls, they've identified as, this is where we want to park the paver, this is where we want to work, you know, park all this for the winter, so.
The foreman trucks they take home.
And then the other thing in my.
So what's charging them?
You just charge them in the parking lot when they're there during the day. If they drive in, they can charge if that's the case. But
Two foreman trucks will fit in half of one.
I don't foresee that happening right away.
But
I'd be surprised.
in all my research, the best thing you can do to be prep for electric is build in a location where you have the facilities, and we do on Route 40, we have the utilities there, we have plenty of power there to bring into the building, to bring into the area. Fort Amber, the same thing. Have we chosen a town road off somewhere else, we could have issues, because there may not be, you know, now you're talking a huge expense of getting your utility company to run.
You need three-phase?
You don't right now, so.
But do we have
Not to
three-phase?
charge or anything.
Yeah.
There is three phase on that road, and same thing with 149. I mean, picking our locations is the best thing we can do right now to prepare for electric. Because 2 level 2 chargers for the foreman trucks are gonna be a very minimal, but it's gonna be an easy project. It's gonna get to the point where my guys could probably install them, just like you could, you know. And level 2 is only gonna last so long, so we can prep for it, and if you wanna install them now, but it's only gonna last so long. So that technology. So the best thing you can do is just prep, be in the right location, and have the available power to do what we need.
Thank you for that answer. The other question is on the radiant heat, it's propane.
Yes.
Do we have a plan B? Does radiant heat can work well, and sometimes it's very, very costly.
Yep.
Do we have another switch over that we can use?
So as far as, are you talking like a backup type heat, if that was broke down, you know, they're talking about like a utility heater to heat the space when the door is open, but there would be some sort of backup, and usually you have redundancy. There would be probably 2 boilers, you know, most of them are modulating now, so if one's down, the other's up, you know, so you do have some redundancy. Okay, and in emergency, when the power's out, I mean, DPW and buildings and grounds are working. I mean, it's not like it's gonna sit there. If the power's out, there's guys working, and we're gonna be there with the tow behind generators, just like we are now. So we've never had, you know, issues even with our building in bad shape now, freezing up or anything.
This isn't really part of your report, sorry. In an ice storm.
Mhm.
You're gonna tow a generator to a location that you can't even get to because there's an ice storm? Why don't we have one on site?
Yeah, if we want to put that in, that's fine. This just came out as what we're, the current thing, and this is what DPW said, they're okay with this process. If you want to put a standby generator at each building, we're more than happy to do it. I mean,
How many do we all order for? Do we have stations, you just store one?
we don't have one for every station. We
But
don't.
that would be the easiest thing, to just buy a couple extra. cartons.
Yeah, so you're looking at like, right, maybe more now, but
That could be an aftermarket thing, because you're gonna have a place, you said you're gonna have like a place to plug your chemical in.
yes. Yeah, and our energy usage in these buildings is much less than what it used to be. Everything is, you know, so we can bid it in. It's easy. You can bid it in the job. It's not a deal breaker one way or another.
They already have a connection for it, so that's why you.
Right. Okay. So,
Anything else?
If you could just go down a little bit, we'll talk about water. That'll finish up safe. Yeah, so here's the south end of the building, the drive around. We're proposing, currently the well is kind of in the center of the site, which is actually maybe enclosed by part of the building. So when we take down the other building, we need to develop a well that is a good source, that is also in compliance with all setback requirements. So we have a spot back here. And this is that underground 20,000 gallon water storage tank for fire protection of the ground. So that's a possible location. And then it would head over to the mechanical, which is on the end of the building for use.
Questions? Does this underground tank, does it have a manhole or something? So if the local volunteer fire company is there fighting a fire, that they can put their suction hose into that tank?
We could provide something like that, or a standpipe.
Because in Washington County, we don't have fire hydrants, water, all of the companies have tankers because we have to ferry water to the scene, but you have 20,000 gallons there.
Yeah, you could.
Maybe that would all be used in the sprinkler, but if the local fire company can drop their hose into it and suck it out.
Yeah.
You might have electric car fire in the parking lot. Sprinklers aren't gonna help you there. And I understand electric car fire takes like 3,000 or 4,000 gallons to put out.
Hell no, you gotta throw it in the Hudson to put it out.
Just let it burn.
Dig a hole, bury it.
Don't buy bolts.
But I think that would be a very good idea.
Yeah, if you got an underground 20,000 gallon storage tank for the sprinkler system, how do you pressurize after there's a fire and the power's out?
There'll be a fire pump, which we talked about earlier, but yeah, there'll be a fire pump inside it. Yeah.
A diesel.
Oh, diesel?
Yep.
Okay.
The pressure is, I mean, it's gonna be a tremendous PSI. Pump that from underground up into the sprinklers. I mean, how fast would it empty that if there was a fire? Right,
Well, it's based on the flow through the sprinkler head, so it's all calculated based on a remote area where the fire might be, and then the pressure of the flow that's needed in each head, so then we bring that back to figure out the size of the tank, the size of the pump, get the pressure that we need.
Is it usually 100 PSI? If it's all your things flowing, you maintain
It
100
depends,
PSI?
yeah, we didn't run numbers for this one yet, obviously, until we get to that point, that'd be further
It's gonna be-
line in the design, but it'll be sized appropriately for the pressure we need for that area.
Dan?
I'm sorry if I missed it earlier, but logic tells me that if you put in a standby generator and built that into that water system, that it would automatically kick on if you needed water from the underground storage to run an electric motor, and then that could also be the backup for the, you'd end up with one engine versus two if you do.
She explained that cost is about a couple $100,000 more than having a diesel.
So they're different options.
Yeah, no,
To your point, that is an alternate option.
yeah, oh, I thought it'd be cheaper. I was trying.
I already asked all your questions.
So, anything else you'd like to cover?
I think.
What's the next phase?
The next phase is, I'd like to continue the discussion and get a resolution to go out to final bid engineering, which were a lot of your questions, which are great questions. They take place in the actual engineering and meetings where they come up, and this is where we hammer out specifics.
Would you like us to run through some of the numbers we came up with?
Sure,
As well.
sure,
Big nitro, we need to.
yeah. You can go through. You can go through the
Yeah, I'll
numbers,
just give you a quick overview. It's down toward the end of the report. It's the last several pages of the report. It's a spreadsheet.
Everybody's favorite topic, cost. So we have a spreadsheet in the report. I'm sure you must have it there towards the back. So again, as we mentioned, this is, schematic design, so we have to make some assumptions. There was a lot of great questions today about, add-ons and things you may or may not need. So we're going with the basic design that we have here already. If you go to the first column at the bottom, scrolling down, the 2020 hard costs. Right now, the building is at $5,284,000. That would be the base cost of the building. Obviously, the building wouldn't be done if you decided to proceed probably until sometime in 2024. So we have normally pre-COVID or supply chain demand, that would be an 8% number. We're carrying 13%. Some places we're seeing the number even higher than that, but we think 13% is a good number. So that's an escalation cost of $688,000. On top of that, since we're only at schematic design, and again, some of the things we talked about, may be in or out of the project. So we have a design contingency as well of 10%, which we typically carry at this point, of $589,000. So that gets us to a total construction budget of $6,570,000 for just construction. On top of that, you would need to add soft costs for the county and incidental costs. This would be your professional fees, any county expenses, furniture and equipment, things like that. And that's typically a 20% budget. So we added that to 1.3 million. And then construction contingency set aside is for change orders during the project. Things always come up. We go out there and first thing you dig up is an old ship or a Volkswagen somewhere, and you need to bring in soils to fill in the hole. So we anticipate a 5% contingency for that, be on the safe side. So with all those numbers together, we're right now at $8,215,630 for this project. again, with some assumptions and inflation. If you scroll down a little bit more, some of the things we talked about on the bottom was potential alternates. One was the underground storm retention system, which Kevin mentioned in the driveway. We don't know yet if you need that. That would be the cost. We had a cost of $270,000 in there if it's needed or not. There has to be, when you get into further design, you have to do calculations to see if the retention pond is enough. If it's not, then you would have to do some underground. So we have that in there. In lieu of radiant heat in the floor, you could do overhead gas fired, as we talked about. That would save $75,000 if you took the radiant heat out of the slab and just did heat above. We also took a look at geothermal. Someone mentioned that may be an option. If you went with geothermal at this point, again, these are just preliminary budgets, it would add about $225,000 to geothermal for a building typically this size.
Is there pay after that?
Right.
Is there payback?
Yeah, what's the ROI on that? Yeah, how long?
We'd have to really calculate that. It's just kind of too early to tell. We just know the cost of the systems. We haven't done an analysis to see on a building that size. But
I mean, because we're probably gonna keep it for 50 or 60 years like this one, but I mean, we'd like to know if there was.
Yeah.
Typically, people do geothermal more just for the sake of utilizing a system, that's giving you an alternate heat source or cooling source. It generally does not pay back. As a general rule, your payback is beyond the life of your equipment. We typically do not recommend geothermal systems as a general rule because of that. It's something you
Thanks for
do-
your truth on that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just it.
We really needed to hear that.
We're not used to hearing the straight story in this room, are we?
There are some incentives you can get through NYSERDA, but they don't offset that cost.
What about a heat
You
pump?
want to go that path.
That's opposed to geothermal heat pump.
That's typically what the system would be.
Yeah. Typically do geothermal as a heat pump as well. I mean, the air, from the air.
Yeah, you could do an air source heat pump. It's a little bit challenging in the Bay areas. I mean,
Electric just went from 4 cents to 12 cents.
Where's the solar field on the back to provide electricity?
And then the last item, which we did talk about quite a bit, is the generator. If you wanted to add a permanent generator, not a portable, it would be about $175,000 for a building this size. Again, we talked about, future, electric outside from parking areas and things like that. Obviously, as part of the design, even if you decided not to proceed with that now, you can run underground conduit, cap it off somewhere so that at least the infrastructure is in there.
Can I ask why you determined 100 kW for generator?
That was just a rough estimate for that size, for that size.
This building doesn't have a huge electrical usage when it's operating.
It would be sized appropriately. Yeah, I mean, I can guess that it would be 20, 50, 100. You just, when you start putting stuff in there.
Yeah.
And if you have ceiling fans and you have an exhaust system for your trucks, and it isn't your house.
Well, but if it's an emergency, it's not.
Open the doors, you just need to open the doors. That's the main thing.
It's an emergency generator, not to run a ceiling fan.
Yeah, we could certainly take loads off.
Loads off.
This is assuming you're putting the whole building on it. You can do select loads and
And it may not be 100, anyway, but usually you size them up, appropriate.
Yeah, at this phase, it's prudent to be conservative because the last thing you want to do is,
I would say these
Into the
cost
next
estimates
phase.
are pretty conservative.
Yeah.
For probably worst case scenarios all the way down the board. And then as we get into the, nitty gritty with the final engineering, we dial these numbers in.
Yeah.
These are budget,
Potential.
Any other questions
yeah,
on?
but I can go down through and star the ones that I think we can save, but I don't know.
Any questions? All right, I think we're looking for a motion to go to final engineering.
To go out to bid for the final engineering.
Final engineering. Motion by Tim, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Darrell.
You go out to bid for the engineering services. Yes, we don't use the guy that usually uses.
These are the guys we usually use, but for a project of this scale, we have to go legally, we have to go out to bid.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, a question for Matt. Matt, Deb and her team so far fully reviewed by them and
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
giving thumbs up.
A lot of the stuff and all the requests in here, I don't make the size of the building. That's all came from them. The layout, what's used, what's not used, what they need, that comes from them.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Was there a cost on that? Final engineering?
Well, it'll come out in the bid, but what would you say, 15% on the engineering of the total cost? What's your, as a standard? I mean, 10, 15.
$1 million for engineering.
Yeah.
You gotta add to the 8.
That's what he put this, that's all right.
There is.
So it's $1 million.
I mean, that's not, we're just talking, that's just a number, that's just an industry standard. Somebody, they're gonna do their work, which they've already done a lot of work, so I'm sure they're not gonna give a number to you right now in a public meeting. Because I mean, that happened in the Ford M bid, you know, where they give a number in a public, and then all of a sudden, 3 people come in at that number that have never seen the project before. So we respect them and let them do their work, and we'll put it out for bid. Right away. Make everybody work.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Matt, 20,000 gallon tank, that plastic.
Plastic.
It's Fort Miller make a concrete? Give us a deal.
20,000 gallons, a big tank.
Yeah, but they make a lot of tanks. I got no idea. And I think they'll make any tank if you order it.
2 or
All right,
3.
let's move on.
We tried to shut it down, got it all bid.
Stephanie's up next.
20 septic tanks.
And then. She is. Oh, where do you want to?
Stephanie, let's
Come back.
sneak you in.
Yeah.
Can we move on?
Stephanie's got the floor.
First and foremost, I guess they need to explain, my name has changed. I am officially back to my maiden name, so when you see Stephanie Cronin, it's me, still Stephanie Limmery, but just a different name. Trying to make it easy. So part of my job as county clerk, I feel, is trying to bring in what revenue I can from my office where I find it to be beneficial. So we have some new clerks who have asked some really great questions. I have a wonderful association. I say that on a regular basis. They had asked about these, what we call Liz pendants, and that's basically when you stop paying your, layman's term, you stop paying your mortgage, so the bank is going to basically repossess your house. So they have to file these documents. Well, back in 2008, it has come to my attention that the government had put into new law that we were able to, through the CPLR, that we were able to get some funds for that additional for the county. It's done through a local law. So when one of the clerks provided this information, I brought it to Roger's attention to have him review it because I don't want to bring something that I don't think is something that we can use. The county, through a local law, can actually start collecting, or could have been collecting, $25 additional on each Liz pendants that is filed in the county.
The bank pays that.
The bank pays that. It is not to our constituents, it's to the bank. So I did some research to see if this would be a beneficial cost to put out there. And since this was eligible in 2008, we would have actually had an increase in our revenue, had it gone into effect then, of $84,825 from 2008 till mid-August with what we've had for Liz pendants. The last 2 years obviously weren't large years because of COVID, and there was a freeze on being able to file any of them. So I am asking today for the board, or for it to go to the next level, to be considered through a local law to start being able to charge the additional $25 for any time a Liz pendants is processed in my office.
That's $6,000 a year.
We had averages of some years, back in 2015, it would have been $8,650.
And with the housing mortgage tax going up and everything else, there's a very good potential that a lot are gonna file because those boom days are gone, right?
Correct. And a lot of people, unfortunately, and I don't like to look at this perspective, but I have to look at every avenue when I believe in my position. Not that I enjoy the fact that people are losing their homes, but when the banks were given the bailout, they did nothing to help the constituents. They kept it for themselves and they kept it for their presidents and their CEOs and gave them all the money, but didn't do anything to help the taxpayers. So unfortunately, they're giving these loans out to people, especially with the rates as low as they were, left and right. People have not paid their renters, their rents, and all that through COVID. So, and they've saved all the money and bought these houses, and the banks were, yes, oh, great, we're going to give you all this money. But now, in real terms, actually, it was back around 2015, that area, where we had an issue with one of our attorneys, and that's when we had a huge chunk of them happen because the banks were giving money left and right to people that really can't afford it, unfortunately, and they end up losing it. And so they just continuously benefit, where this is a small benefit that can come back to the county.
Yeah, how do we move forward?
The way we would with any other local law, go through the normal process. Roger drafted.
That's about it. Although they're in-house, but in your town, it probably costs about $1,000. But the payback is still a couple months, right? A few months.
We got a bunch of resolutions, had a local board, had a public hearing.
Yes.
There is one time it will affect the taxpayer, so November 1st of every year, I have to file this pen to all of the people who have unpaid taxes, and that filing fee is then added to the parcel. So, and as those parcels are redeemed, that fee gets sent down to staff. So that $5 fee that's added to the parcels now on November 1st would become whatever you're proposing. That's the only time that it would affect the taxpayer. Because if they're on that list pendants that we file with you.
At the end of the day, you know, in a mortgage foreclosure, at the end of the day, with a private bank, they're gonna tack that onto their judgment at the end.
Stack on either way.
So
What would be the labor cost of an employee? You know, how much time is involved in planning with this, each individual one? Would that just take the $25 and make it into, because somebody's got to do the work.
Yeah, but they're doing the work anyway. They're just doing it
We're
for less
doing the
money. We're
work
just changing
now
the price
where
of what
we
they
don't
pay.
get any of the money for doing the work. I believe we might get $1 out of the $35.
So there's no additional workload to the department.
No, it's just something that we have not been getting along the way.
So that cost is gonna go on to the future buyer.
But you know, like it's like with anything else, you have a mortgage foreclosure, 99 times out of 100, the bank ends up being the high bidder because they do what's called the upset price for the loan to get paid back. So at the end of the day, it eventually will get passed on to the environment. As we know, banks don't like to own real property for any particular length of time.
As long as it's not going on the current owner, that's okay. I think it's a good idea.
Need a resolution?
Resolution move forward.
I can also let you know that Roger has asked for a copy of the local law. So I was able to get that from Portland. So he does have that. So he kind of has the guidelines of what the structure of the local law would need to be as well.
Okay. Got a motion?
You know what it is, Deb?
Right, that we'll introduce it and set a public hearing at the next meeting.
Correct. Moved by Matt, second by Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else, Stephanie?
That's all I have.
Thank you. So we have two items. Matt may not talk to these engineers, got a couple items to cover. We also have another motion that we, another matter we have to go into executive session to cover.
So my understanding that the basis for going into executive session is to discuss proposed pending and current litigation.
Before we do that, I do have one quick, hopefully 30-second
Okay.
question. I have 5 towns that still have Duke counties. They're Dresden, Easton, Greenwich, Putnam, and White Creek. If any of you plan to pay direct, please let me know as soon as possible. If you let it ride, you can let me know that as well. The sooner I can get it to Debbie, the sooner it's helpful to get the levy ready.
Don't sit down, Matt.
Yeah, sir, let it ride.
Yep.
What is that? The Duke County, that I sent out to all the towns. You have the opportunity to either pay it direct, or if you don't pay it direct, it becomes part of your levy, and it goes on your tax bills in January. Greenwich's is $1,818.
But tell us what the advantage is to the county and to the town.
But it affects the tax cap.
Yeah.
Adding that to a tax bill. So back in 2013, after the tax cap started, I allowed the towns to pay direct so that it did never hit the levy, just so that it's not impacting the tax caps. So you have that option every year if you so choose to do it.
Any other questions? Matt Jones had 3 other items to cover.
Yep. First thing to talk about is the Met trailer demolition. I think I talked about it last month. We got our quotes in $13,800 is the cost to clean it out of there, to be gone. So that was the lowest quote. I'd like to get a resolution and move forward with that. It was Charles Friedman Excavating.
Can I ask the different prices that we're getting?
Yep. Well, there's 3, but there's 2 responded. The third opted out of doing it, which is illegal, well, in our world. So 13,800, 17,468. And the opt-out was a lot of companies that do demolition, they might not do it on a municipal standard where we have the asbestos, hazmat and everything. So that was provided to these guys, and that's the quote which they could do it for.
Can we take all that paint we're collecting next month, put it into that trailer before they demolish it?
Yeah, right.
Do you have any idea where it goes, the material?
So when that, no. I don't personally know where it goes, but they're provided with the information that we legally need to give them. And in good faith, when they get rid of it, they're supposed to. And if there was an issue of where it went, it would be on them because they were provided with the actual hazmat survey of what the hazardous materials.
I thought there was a pit in Hartford.
Yeah.
That's what I want. That's what I want to. It goes.
Trying to make an island in the pond, I heard.
In the proposal, do we require that it goes to an approved pit?
We don't know. When I hand them the whole hazmat report that was done by an engineer, they have to look at it and they say, there isn't a ton in this one. I do know that. There's very little. So they can do it 1 of 2 options. And I don't really care at this point how they bid on it. They can say everything is hazardous materials and they can ship it to a hazardous materials dump. Or they can come in and they can take out the hazardous material, pay to get rid of that, and then everything else would go construction. And
But it has to go to a C and D dump.
yes.
A regular licensed C and D dump, not just some backfield.
Well, it always has to anyway. That's just.
I don't expect that. That's on the company that's doing it. And
Yeah.
that's really on the company that's doing it. If they take it to a field somewhere, they completely did it illegally. I mean, that's on them. It's not on me. I can't.
Yeah, that's good for the state revenue.
No, but I didn't know if our proposal said that the line was that, the material needs to go to an appropriate location.
When I hand them the whole hazardous material survey. I think they take notice and they know that they're working for somebody that's already done this. I'm sure they have to keep their,
That cost, does that include the engineering of identifying hazardous waste?
that was already done, that was done 2 years ago.
And we paid for
We
that.
paid for that.
Yeah.
And it was
So
already
there's
done.
no other cost to us at all. And this spot is gonna be cleaned off.
And it's gonna be cleaned up. It's already, everything shut down. We've done all, we've actually got the demolition permit from the county. We went through the whole process of the demolition permit and everything, so.
Move this a little bit.
What's that?
Move on that. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Ken,
I'm wondering the demolition permit states.
any further discussion?
The resolution in finance will have the approval of the bid and the budget amendments to pay for.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next.
All right. Second one is I'd like a resolution to transfer money from Mike McGeorge.
Are you okay with more if I step out for a minute? I don't know.
We have four.
TK's
There would be four.
To transfer money from the public defender's ILS to my 16-20-4150 line, which is office equipment. It's ILS money for the remodel we're doing for Moram. $20,403.12. And that allows us just to get the PO cut and get the stuff ordered.
So
And it's
So moved by Matt, second by Tim. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Just for,
that's why Al did us.
just for clarity, it's gonna be revenue in from Mike, expense out for him, so it's budget neutral for his department.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Anything else?
Yeah. I don't know if this really needs to come here or not, but I figured I'd bring it up. I'm working on implementing the safety boot program for buildings and grounds. That's just mimics DPWs and the sewer districts. I've been getting after my guys a little bit about wearing sneakers and wearing safety shoes, and I've talked to Phil about it. And there's already programs and I know how it works. I have the budget line to do it. So I just wanted to implement it, and basically it's $125 a year. And you have to bring, it's reimbursable. They bring in the receipt and proof that it's OSHA approved, safety shoe. And we reimburse them $125 per year.
it's already in your budget.
Well, I can, it's not in that budget line, but I have, breakage in the .4 that I could transfer it to that safety and uniform line. I didn't budget for it in 2023 either because I didn't realize it was a thing. So, but what I can do is I have other lines. I have safety training and different things, and I could, for this year, I could.
You need a budget amendment to send finance to do this.
This transfer can be done by just a regular Brian letter, so you don't need a formal
It's
resolution.
.4 to .4, but I wanted to let you know that I was doing it, and it is something that I didn't get into this year's budget, but it's well needed.
So,
They're not.
yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple questions too. Yeah, first of all, they are non-union, so, so this is just for them to buy safety boots.
Yeah, that's the only way they get reimbursed. Is they have to come with a safety. No, 125 is what I went down to DPW, went through their whole policy, and I said I would just mimic it.
Is that what the Teamsters are getting currently? Is 125?
Yeah.
I would have liked to. So I could have.
Well, I thought this, I mean, I was burning here. We don't want the boots, that's fine. But
Well, I'll just sign it after we find out.
it is kind of, well, I went and did the research. I mean, it's
It's gonna be
It's
cheaper
in-
if they have safety toes.
Well, I
it's a
think it's
transfer.
important because your workers' comps claims. I mean, yeah.
It is kind of .4 budget. I mean, it's not like I'm asking for money to do this.
I'm a little bit curious with 125 is enough.
It's not enough to cover a pair of work boots. It's just an offset, because I'm gonna make it mandatory that they start wearing. It's never been mandatory that my guys wear anything safe other than, if they're doing it. So I talked to Phil about this. And now I'm going there and I'm giving them a hard time and like, hey, you need to wear better shoes or,
And for it to be
safety.
mandatory, then. we
And I
have to
want
pay
to make
for
it mandatory, right? So it's not a full, but I'm not paying, if they're paying $200 boots, they get $125 off. But
So Deb has requested, we have a resolution, we have a record that we're authorizing.
4.4.
Well, actually,
No, she doesn't want a budget amendment, she wants a policy.
resolution policy
You know, it's an approved expense.
to make sure it's an
I mean, the
approved.
other ones are in contracts. So when the vouchers come in, we know the DPW contract has an allotment. for food. So how do we know going into the future that it's okay that you buy boots for
Do
buildings?
we want to include it in that? Do we want to amend the employee handbook so that it's memorialized?
The buildings and grounds, or I mean, you're gonna do it. I kind of was under the assumption this was kind of in the operating of buildings and grounds. If I'm gonna make policies for my department to be safe, then we have to.
Don't forget it affects other departments too, maybe.
The only other department that I could think that it would affect would be the sewer department.
And theirs is actually is higher.
And that
They're,
isn't-
they're
that
180.
actually, that isn't even written anywhere, I don't believe, unless there was a resolution at one point.
They're non-union too, so.
I looked, I didn't see any
It's
resolution
just,
on any of it, so.
Does Hartford pay for their rooms?
Yeah,
Hampton does.
Ours is 260.
yours is 250 and
We
our
pay the
guys,
cost. So,
I think sewer district is 180. I think
annual expense, or are we talking seasonal?
would be an annual expense that would cost approximately, I would say $3,500 per year. It'd be $3,500 annual to get my whole crew up with it.
How do you want to mechanically do this?
I think we can check into it.
Hey, Matt.
I mean, we've got time.
One pair of shoes for $125 for a full year.
A credit towards whatever they buy. If I put $8, I get $125.
Yeah.
I don't
You're
know how many
100%
pair of boots
right.
you go through, but working every day with one pair of boots, that's nothing.
No, you agree, and I agree, but what I was doing was mimicking what
Yeah.
DPW, which my guys work in and out with those guys.
Guys,
You know,
600.
I just used what was already there.
I go through a pair in 6 months.
But I do want to make amendments, and I really think it should. I don't think there would be any.
I know, yeah.
all right,
We got people.
all right, so what do you
I have no
want?
clue what we're doing.
Deb, how do you want to proceed? You want a resolution?
We can figure that out, but you ought to do a motion at least to authorize buildings and grounds to have reimbursed $125 for work.
Motion by Tim, do you have a second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Carrie, are you done? Aye. As we talked about before,
Oh, there you go.
we do need a motion to go into executive session for the reasons that Dan discussed.
No, I just want to give you.
We got a motion going into executive session.
Pay my highway guys.
Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
$150.
I'll make that motion, Dave.
Motion by Darrell,
They go to like Walker's.
Second.
second by Matt. All right, we're gonna go, all in favor? Carrie, Deb, tell us when we're ready.